Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of It's a Football Thing. Even though we only saw you on Thursday, I know it feels like it's been a long time. I've missed you all, and I know the boys have missed you all. As has already been noted in the live chat, we are joined by a very, very special guest, someone that RJ and I had the pleasure of going out and spending some time with not too long ago, just seeing a little bit of his world, and I was blown away by his dedication, commitment, knowledge, all things football. So we've got Claudes here. If you haven't seen Claudes and you're living under a rock, you can find him on the Born Offside Podcast. We had Kat last week. I think she said #1 football podcast in New South Wales. In the country. We'll let Claude share that. But we are back. We've got Claudes. We're talking football culture. We're looking at the FA Cup. Rob has some things to share with that. And we're going to look ahead to some Premier League fixtures as well. First of all, we are going to greet Claudes. Claudes, how are you? Welcome back to IFT.
I'm good, gentlemen. Thanks for having me again. Feels like it's been a while and a lot has changed, but there's still always just storylines every week to talk football. So I was excited to get on here and talk about it as the Premier League comes back and see what you guys are up to. So happy to be here and g'day to everyone watching as well.
And your show, Born Offside, the podcast, it's amazing. We know Kat plugged it last week, but just from your end, what are you guys doing with that? You're absolutely loving it, aren't you?
Yeah, it's good fun. It's good fun. It's a good balance, and it's very different perspectives on football and on sometimes life generally, which I think is fun. When I met Kat and met Olan, I used to actually play football with Olan. So I think I kind of brought the three of us together one day just to hang out. And when I saw the range of conversations and the fact that we all think about football very differently, I thought, yeah, this is cool. You know, rather than thinking, I disagree with these guys or we disagree with each other, there were key nuggets. We all shared the same passion and we all love the game, but we came from different walks and we can butt heads on things. And that's when I was like, yeah, let's try this out. And, we've got a great team there at I Want It Yesterday as well. They can make things look pretty and make things sound good, which always add to it. So it's just fun and we're learning as we go.
Absolutely smashing. We've had Kat. We've had you this week. We need you to put in a good word for us to Olan. So we might leave you a bit of homework, Claude. Robbie, how are you, man?
Yeah, good, mate. Like I said, obviously, the Cupset upset me, but look, on a serious note, it's been an important week or a couple of days ago for Manchester United fans. Obviously, 64th anniversary of the Munich air disaster, so it's a very big and important day in our history and our legacy. So yeah, rest in peace to the Busby babes.
RJ, I'm going to hand over to you now, my man, to say hello and introduce the chat.
Thanks very much, Scott. And again, welcome back, Claudes. It's good to have another Italian stallion in the chat with us, joining our Maltese Falcon and resident Gooner. Not much to be too happy about if you're a Gunners man. But look, in all seriousness, good to be here. It's another week. We're happy to talk a bit of Premier League coming up. But let's welcome a few of the people who have been kind enough to join us this evening. We've got our man declared in the house. A very topical item he's brought up with Kurt Zouma, undoubtedly, unless you have genuinely been sleeping under a rock. He has caused some very big controversy this morning. We've got Tom from the United Podcast. Good to see you back, Tom. Although being a United fan, not sure how happy you would be this evening. We've got Daniel here. Good to see you, Daniel. Nice to see a fellow Blue in the house. And, of course, we've got a couple of regulars here in Alex and Justin joining us. But boys, very quick thoughts. FA upsets, Cupsets, some standard results. Now, Claudes, I heard you earlier on your show talking a little bit about Everton and the renaissance under Frank Lampard. Now, that was a very impressive result that they got against the Bees, 4-1. And we're not going to go in any great detail or anything, but just from your perspective, we're both obviously devout Super Frank fans and very happy to see him doing well in his first game. But just very quickly, and get the boys just their thoughts too, do you think that this game here represents what Frank Lampard is about, or is this just more of a game where Brentford were caught off guard and Toffees were just buzzing on a new manager bounce?
I think it definitely does showcase what Frank's about, but I think more so what Everton are about. I mean, when I looked at that squad at the start of the season, I thought it's a very good squad, and they had moments in the first few weeks as well. They've had moments last season. These players have potential to really take points off the top six you'd expect on a regular basis, and so I thought it was nice to see Frank go and start a regular team that was already playing. You know, when a manager comes in and makes drastic changes straight away, sometimes it can rub players the wrong way. He stuck with the players that were already there before, didn't play any of his new guys. And I love that about it. I thought he's you don't want to be a manager that comes in and loses the change room right away. It seemed like everyone was rejuvenated. Let's be real. I don't think anyone understood the Rafa appointment from the beginning. It really didn't make much sense, right? Maybe we're just football romantics, but you know, a Liverpool legend went to Chelsea. That didn't really work out. So why would this work out? We all thought the same thing. But it just seems like, you know, fans, the place was bouncing. We saw what happened at Goodison when there was talk about other managers coming in. The fans clearly wanted Frank Lampard as their man. They got their man. The players seemed the same. So, yeah, it's a bit of both. I think it's shown how good Frank can be. It's still early days to judge the manager, but for me, it showed how good Everton are. When you look at those players, you're like, oh, yeah, they can do that. Richarlison can score goals like that. Townsend can dribble like that. Like, it's the same old faces, but they just look rejuvenated now.
Yeah, no, spot on. And Scott, we spoke about it last week. You're not obviously very keen on Frank at the moment as a manager based on what has he achieved in his very short tenure as a manager. But I'm not sure if you had a chance to catch any of the highlights, at least, of the games. I did. Did you think to yourself, okay, well, maybe I can see a little bit of what Frank's trying to do here? Or is it just the players themselves, you know, realising within themselves just how good they can be when they're ready to turn it on?
Way too early. This is one cup game. We've seen madness in the cup.
You did tip Brentford, by the way, didn't you? For this game?
That's one of the beautiful things about the FA Cup, that anything can happen. I tipped Brentford. Everton got a good win, but you highlighted some great players there. Guys like Richarlison, for example. The key is, can Frank get them performing consistently? Because, yeah, mate, it doesn't take a footballing genius to figure out that Richarlison can score goals. Can a structure and a set of tactics and an environment be created there that fosters that in him and supports that? Now, I've been really critical of my own manager, not mine, but Mikel Arteta, and the fact that he seems to fall out with players left, right, and centre. But there's still enough results to keep him in the job. We need to see what Frank does here. Can he foster the right environment? And when we talk about football culture, we'll talk about managers who have super high expectations, particularly around discipline. But a good start for Frank. You couldn't have asked for much more as an Evertonian, but the proof is in the pudding, and we'll see how he goes in the Premier League when that starts.
I loved how upset you were to talk and pay a compliment to Frank. It felt so good. You were biting yourself. You were waiting for the bees to sting Everton on their thing.
They beat Brentford. Well done. But that's hardly the best test to
Arteta couldn't do it, could he?
Build some gloating on the back of. And I love how you're so proud of him when your club axed him in the back. But I mean, look, let's move on. You guys did knife him. You had your chance if he was that great. He didn't make the cut. So
beautiful. And Robbie, any thoughts on that before we look on a couple of the other games? Because there were a few obviously massive results in the FA Cup this round.
Yeah, look, just quickly on the Frank and Everton one. Again, very early days. I was one of the ones that said last week I actually think he'll do a good job at Everton. I think it's a risk on both accounts for both Everton and himself. I still think that, like I said, we've got to see what he does in the Premier League and how quick this team gets the manager bounce and how long for, because I think their prime objective this year is to stay away from that relegation zone, because a manager bounce doesn't always happen overnight. So if he can, I think the Evertonians or the Evertonian board will be happy if he just steers the ship into safety. If he can move up the table, bonus. And then, like I said, he'll probably get a good transfer window next season and build on that. But I'd say the thing is keep away from that relegation zone, because before Frank and obviously under Rafa, their form was terrible and they really have to look behind themselves.
Yeah, no, fair point. And just to round out the whole Everton drama, because there were a lot of other action-packed games, I've got a question for you specifically, Claudes, about Dele Alli. Specifically, do you think Frank can get a tune out of him?
I love Frank. I've never been the biggest Dele Alli believer, to be honest. I mean, I know even when he burst on the scene, he showed glimpses, but I think it seems like when he plays, he suits a very specific formation. He suits like a lot of players, he's kind of almost a dying art in that number 10 role. And when you play like that, you got to be very, very good. And every time you touch the ball, you got to be turning over some sort of killer pass, shot on target. I haven't seen that from Dele in a while. And you don't want to judge someone by what you see on, Netflix or whatever it was, Amazon, Tottenham documentaries and things like that can shape a player a certain way. But you can't help but question whether he's ever really been as good as he was hyped up to be, as a lot of English players are. But let's see. There's no one better than an English number 10 or attacking midfielder who dominated the game for so many years. So let's see what Frank can do. If I was a betting man, I'd say I don't think he'll be the main man for Everton.
Yeah, exactly. I think he represents a bit of a luxury signing, but low risk, potentially high return, just like with Donny, in my opinion. But hey, at the end of the day, we've seen how players, when they change environments, can all of a sudden spark into form. But let's talk about a team that's showing some very great form in the Cup, and that's Nottingham Forest.
Knocked out the Gunners, this one.
Knocked out Leicester City. How far can this Forest team go? I'll get your thoughts first, Scott. How do you feel as being one of the victims of the Nottingham Forest team?
Mate, they're done. The next Premier League opposition they face, they're out. I mean, we see these fairy tales every year. A team gets a couple of good little results, but ultimately, when was the last time a non-Premier League team won the FA Cup? I mean,
probably Wigan.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be negative. I am still a little bit bitter they knocked us out, but we underestimated them. Leicester underestimated them. Whoever they come up against next from the Premier League will not make that mistake, and there's too much of a gulf in difference. So, look, good on them. We love seeing these little teams come up, except when it's against your team, but good on them. It's great to see it happening. This is the magic of the Cup. But, yeah, I was a bit shocked that there wasn't much I haven't seen a lot of kind of social media buzz about Leicester. I know that they knocked us out and we're a bigger club, but that was the talk of the town. There hasn't been much about Leicester, and I do wonder, Brendan Rodgers now...
I was just about to say the same thing.
Starting to sleep. I mean, it's all starting to unravel a little bit. He does have history of when it starts to get to the business end, things do fall apart. I just wonder if maybe he's done what he can at Leicester and he needs to move somewhere else and put his mark there. I don't think he can take Leicester any further than he already has.
Yeah, very interesting points, and we can touch on a little bit about Rodgers' future and the manager as part of that whole football culture debate. But Rob, do you agree with Scott's sentiments here about this is the end of the road for Nottingham? Because let's face it, Leicester were now the reigning, title holders of this cup. So I don't know. I just think, for me, you risk taking them too lightly at your own peril. The fairy tale can exist, but I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, look, it's a football thing, as we say. Anything can happen. The ball is round 90 minutes, and anything can happen. As we've seen, look what happened to my team. Look what nearly happened to Chelsea and West Ham. Very similar situations against low opposition. Nearly got blindsided, or we did. But look, I don't. Do you know who they've got in the next round? I forgot, or I haven't seen.
Huddersfield in the next round.
I think that's very winnable against Huddersfield, and then after that, it probably gets close quarterfinals by then. So I could definitely see them doing Huddersfield, and then
But I wouldn't write off Huddersfield. They're a quality team.
I wouldn't either. But I think that if they can knock off Leicester and Arsenal, I think you can't say that they can't knock off them as well. So. Look, I'll quickly touch on the Brendan Rodgers thing, only because I thought it was a good talking point. Monday morning, I was listening to TalkSport, and the Leicester fans were blowing up with the whole Brendan Rodgers situation, saying we want him out kind of thing. What Scotty said, I think he's reached his limit. He can't go anymore, and he's literally bottling it. Like, you go back 2 seasons, and Leicester were, over the 2 last seasons, they've been in the Champions League or top 4 for the most, and it was nearly up to the last day when they dropped to 5th. Not 1 year, but 2 years in a row. So they bottled that. They're quite far down. What are they, 8th or something at the moment? So for a team of their caliber and current FA Cup winners, and they always do get quite reasonably backed in the transfer window from their owners, always chipping in money and stuff. I actually think that last year we were talking him up. This year you can just see, and this is a prime example of why I wouldn't want him out of Manchester United when we have to look for a manager next year. So for me, I think he has to really start getting some results, or he could be the next head on the chopping block.
Claudes, what do you think about that? Is he in real danger? Because you read his I read his post-match comments this earlier, and I thought this doesn't sound like a guy that's leading a happy camp. He's saying, some of these players might have peaked or hit their ceiling by winning the FA Cup, but that's not what I'm about. I'm a winner, this and that. You read between the lines, and it doesn't paint a pretty scenario, or is that just looking too much into it, do you think?
No, you're definitely right. I think I wouldn't be surprised if he's already agreed a deal for next season. I don't think it's so much a case of Brendan Rodgers will be sacked and he'll be out looking for a job. I don't think that's the case. I wouldn't be surprised if he's already agreed to move somewhere next season. And Rob, I hate to say it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's already agreed potentially the Man United job. Because because I think he's let's be real, he won the FA Cup last year with Leicester, won the Community Shield this season with City, and yes, he's out of everything besides now he's in the Conference League, but maybe it is this slump has come because it often happens if a manager, you see it with players when they've already agreed to go somewhere else at the end of the year. Yeah, maybe his head's elsewhere. Maybe the players know it as well because it is a strange change. And football, we're going to talk about this later, but football fans are fickle and I guess they can forget quickly. But he's done a pretty good job at Leicester City, right? And if we had this conversation 6 months ago, it was a very different conversation. So something's changed between now and then. There was talk about him buying houses in the Manchester region. I wouldn't be surprised if there's already been a deal put on the table.
Keep it away.
You know what, though, Rob? I know you could do worse. You could do a lot worse. I mean, look at Rodgers. I think we need to all move past the myth of seeing Leicester now as that team that won the Premier League. They're not that team anymore. They've had turnover. You look at their squad on paper now. It's actually, do they have a better squad than City, United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal? I would even probably chuck Villa in there at the moment. I actually don't think they have a better squad. Spurs, I don't think they have a better squad than any of them. So I wouldn't be slating him too much for where they are. I think over the last few years, he's got a tune out of those players, but the Premier League's just too hard. I actually think he'd do a good job with United. I think there's more talent there that he could, let's see what kind of tune he could get out of players with that kind of ceiling, because let's have good players, but there's a lot of teams that have good players in this league. That's why it's the best league in the world. But, mate, I wouldn't be fobbing my nose up at Brendan Rodgers, mate. Beggars can't be choosers, Robbie.
But Scott, let's not discredit the great work Rangnick's done. He took Middlesbrough away to a penalty shootout the other day, mate. That's something you don't just gloss over. Robbie, how did you think about that game? Because I really need to hear from you. I know I saw you that night. You were blowing off a bit of steam. I stood about 5 meters back from you, but it's like I had the heater on still. Talk us through some of the emotions of, being knocked out by Middlesbrough, given your thoughts a couple of days before about United possibly going all the way in this competition.
Taking the L, mate. I'm taking the L. Look, I'm actually gutted. Like I said, it was on the Thursday night. We're previewing this, and I was all eggs in the basket for FA Cup. This is the only cup I generally thought we could have a push for, or a genuine opportunity of going for. Anything can happen in the Champions League, but I think it's very early days on in that. This one here, especially when you draw Middlesbrough at home, it's a nice draw after getting West Ham first. I thought, get this. We'll get into a quarterfinal. I just thought, and like I said, Ralph came out himself and said, I picked the full squad, to go all out for this. And look, if you look at the result, it depends if you watch the game. If you look at the result, it's a terrible result. But if you look at the performance, it just wasn't. We couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. The first half we've actually played decent. The first half was good. We're knocking the ball around. We had so much space in behind, and we used it to our advantage with our pace. From Sancho, Rashford, and Ronaldo, the amount of times they got in through balls from Bruno, it was like, we normally can't break down a low block team, but for once, like I said, with all this space, we'll use it to our advantage, but nothing was happening. We hit the crossbar, we hit the post. Ronaldo, of all people, misses a penalty. How often does that happen?
Should have given it to Bruno.
Where's all the Pessi talk? That's what I'm waiting for. All of the Pessi talk just mysteriously disappeared.
Well, it was funny enough that they both got knocked out in the cup competition on penalty shootouts this week. I thought
he scored his penalty though, to be fair.
He's missed plenty of important ones.
What do you make of United at the moment? As a Chelsea fan, you'd have to be loving seeing them in the mud. I know I am. And welcome, Rob. Welcome, mate. I'd give you a big hug if I could, because I know you're pain. We're in the mud with you.
No, that's fine. I can take it.
Yeah, I don't know. United, I do feel for them given that they must be putting out fires left, right, and center behind the scenes. And I look, I have a lot of very good friends of mine that are big Manchester United fans, and I think there was this overconfidence when Ralph Rangnick was appointed, and you just had to really look at his past, not to discredit him at all as a genius of football. There's no doubt about that. And the work he's done with smaller clubs as well. But he's never managed a change room like that. He's never managed those type of players. He's never competed and won big competitions. But not to say he's not a good manager. Some of the best managers in the world haven't coached the biggest and most deepest pockets, let's say. But he's thrown into this change room, which he's got a lot of off-field issues, which we all know about. But on top of that, I just don't understand. First, there was that Martial sacking where he said one thing, the player said something else. Now it's happened with Lingard again, where he said he's left him out for a reason. So it just doesn't look good. I don't know if, we've seen before, Maurizio Sarri at Chelsea was similar in that the media killed him before the fans even did. Like, media got the best of Maurizio Sarri, and I'm seeing like maybe he can't handle the British media, and it is a bit of lost in translation. But whatever it is, it's just it's not looking good for you guys, is it? Because on paper, you look at that starting lineup against Middlesbrough, you should be rolling them 4-0.
It could have been 6-0. That was the thing. Like, we're unlucky. And so credit to Middlesbrough. They took us all the way. They scored their equaliser. They got all the way. They took us a penalty. I don't blame Anthony Elanga. A lot of people, I thought it was really, disappointing, all the racial stuff that came out after, a young kid misses a penalty. A penalty shootout is a lottery at the end of the day. And we had more than enough. We had 30 chances created in that game. And we scored one goal and a penalty miss and such and such and such. So, look, it's on ourselves. Again, for Middlesbrough, that's what you call a cup set, mate. 20 years, I think, since the last time they knocked us out. And it was actually funny enough. I was listening to your pod today, Claudes, that little story about the Middlesbrough fan that left his kid in the hotel and went on the
good parenting model.
I love it. Stories like that is good. But like I said, we take it on the L, and all I can say is now top four is concentrate on top four and have a go in the Champions League. That's all we've got left for the rest of the season.
But you know what? I specifically held out on bagging United that game because I thought Chelsea's got Plymouth. They should roll them, got a good team. And lo and behold, we had to go all the way for extra time and get Kepa, Mr. Penalty Saver, to bail us out. Tell you what, very similar to United in the sense, started well, conceded a very random, cheap free kick. They scored from their first attempt. We hit the post three times, missed about a gazillion chances. It was going to be one of those days. I thought, oh boy, we're going to lose, and this is craptastic basically. But we just done enough to pull through, and maybe that's what we needed to give ourselves the propel to the rest of our campaign. Not sure what you thought, Claudes. Was it never in doubt, or were you equally a bit nervous yourself, mate?
I definitely was in doubt for a little while there. That's the beauty of football. But like you said, when it does go your way after a grinding result like that, it can lift you. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Unfortunately, if United win that penalty shootout, there's a lot of positivity. Yes, they went to penalties against the championship team, but it's like we dug deep. Despite all the pressure, we scored all our penalties. You can always take positives through it. And that's just the game that we love. Unfortunately, when it goes the other way, all of a sudden fingers start to get pointed. I actually don't think United played much worse than Chelsea did against Plymouth, who were lower opposition than Middlesbrough. But yet we're here saying pat on the back off to the Club World Cup, and they're in crisis. And that's just the way it goes.
Just quickly, boys, just quick fires on this one. The handball in our game, look, I am a little bit salty on it, but I just want to know, honest opinion, if that was your team, what do you think of the rules? Only because a lot of people have come out and I agree with them. If that was a handball for a defender, that's a penalty. It's a handball to the attacker. Why is it not called off? Because he's got an advantage from the handball. Yes, it was accidental, but it's bounced up off his knee. He's controlled it because he's gained an advantage, then he's passed it and they've scored the goal. Why is it one and not the other? Because if that's definitely a defender, our defender, that's a penalty for a handball. So why is it not the other way around?
So, look, the last I remember, the last change to the handball rule a few years ago was that if the ball strikes another body part and then redirects into your hand, it's not a handball. So that's why that stopped that stopped those, a defender sliding in front of the goal when it hits the knee and bounces up into the hand. Same when you're controlling the ball. Technically, if you take a terrible first touch and it bounces up accidentally and hits your hand, it's play on, technically, when that rule came in. So I think that's what it was. To be honest, watching it, I would have, I mean, it's not up to me, but I would have given a handball because I thought, as you said, it's almost like he's taken another touch to help it on its way. It's almost like he's got the ball under control using his hand, whether it came off a body part first. But I think it just comes to that. I think it honestly just comes to the black and white rules, which state that if it bounces off another body part first, it's not a handball.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's harsh. It's very harsh. I felt bad for United fans there because, it looked terrible.
Don't have to feel bad, Claudes. We're used to it, mate. We cop it. Arsenal get all the good calls, Scott, I'm sure will agree with. But you know what? Just moving away from FA Cup, because the big players aside from, United and Leicester comfortably got through. Liverpool, City continue business as usual and probably will still be the favourites for that competition, one or the other. But it's good to see that there are some other teams rising up through the ranks and hopefully can cause a few more upsets along the way. But now to the more serious and the more fun-filled part of the conversation in many ways is football culture or modern-day footballer today. And we're just trying to really, now that we have you, Claudes, and you're quite esteemed in the footballing community, we thought this is a good opportunity to talk through and get your thoughts along with the rest of the panel. Just some of the nuances of the today footballer versus the yesteryear footballer, as well as the fans. Now, Scott, I know you had a couple of questions you wanted to kick it off, so why don't you take the floor, mate, and we'll go in from there.
Yeah, I guess let's start with the role of social media, boys. Now, I was doing a little bit of reflecting on this. I'm very careful with my social media. Obviously, this isn't my career. This is something I do for fun with my mates and some champions who join us here and there. So I've got to be really careful about my footprint and the things I say. Even something that isn't necessarily a bad thing, you have to think about the perception. I look at some of just the behavior and stuff that's happening. We saw Zuma. Might start with him because that's this morning. There was that footage that's been released, I think it was from Snapchat, of Zuma kicking, hitting a cat. Right now, it's abhorrent behaviour. It's just savage behaviour, in my opinion. But at some point, Zuma was there being recorded by someone engaging in this behaviour. So in his head, he's had to have been okay with getting filmed. Now we see things get leaked, things get released. Everyone's got a video camera. Everyone's got a voice recorder. Everyone's got this with them. Do you think it's a case of modern day footballers are worse behaved than their predecessors? Has the culture changed? Or is it just that with technology, your modern day footballers getting caught far more than your old school players were? I don't know what camp I'm in on this. I'm going to do an RJ and sit on the fence and hear what you boys have to say. But just to frame that question for you again, are modern day footballers worse behaved than the footballers of yesteryear? Or is it simply that with technology and phones, the modern day footballers are getting caught a heck of a lot more? Claude, you've interviewed footballers. You've been around the game in a capacity that we haven't had the privilege of being in. What are your thoughts on this, first of all?
Yeah, I think that there's a few conversations to be had here. I think that the additional question is the life, take away the social media, the life of the modern footballer, particularly a young footballer, the bank account and the fame. So I think that has something to do with when we're asking whether footballers are different today. They are also different because of the incredible fame, the incredible power that comes, unfortunately, with that level of fame on social media and the bank account at a young age before you've even made your first grade debut, which footballers tell you was not there 20 years ago. So I think that's a big thing. As far as are footballers worse behaved today than they were before, I don't think so. Without naming names, but a lot of footballers that I chat to, they always say, "Oh, God, I'm glad I played in the era I played in," as in retired footballers. They all say that because they're like, because we were young lads and we were now nothing bad, nothing really terrible like what we're hearing, but as in they'd go out and they'd have a few drinks and they'd go to a club, and if they played an away game in Spain, they'd make sure that they went to a nightclub in Spain afterwards, and there was no photo cameras to take photos of them having a few drinks, and they'd have a table and then meet people out, guys, girls, and have fun and dance all night, and won't get home till the next morning, but there were no cameras to take photos of them and say those things. That's what they all tell me, and they're like, it was a great time because we took our football very seriously, but it meant that when we did have those windows of opportunities, we could go out and do things that our friends were doing, partying, 22, 23-year-olds going out, but now they can't do that because there is a camera in your face all the time. And there are people that unfortunately are out to get you. We saw the Ivan Toney video while he was on holiday. I mean, and it's silly from him, but you can imagine Ivan Toney's had a few drinks. Someone comes up to him and says something, and without thinking he responds. Then it's like, oh no, have I just said that? And what can come from that is terrible. So yeah, there's a few conversations to have. I think the biggest problem is the fame that they have now at a young age. And they tell you that I've seen a couple famous athletes DMs, and just seen the flurry of messages of people that want to meet up with you, people that want to see you, people, and it's pretty confronting. But people that will literally send you things and throw themselves at you, and it can't be healthy for any young mind. So that's a massive problem. That's where I think social media makes the biggest impact.
And I can relate to that, being one of the best looking cheapers in New South Wales, Claudes. Mate, if you saw
not just New South Wales, Scott, don't sell yourself short, mate. Don't restrict
if you saw my DMs, Claudes, mate, you would be shocked at how many people want my time. But look, all jokes aside, RJ, Claudes has brought up some really good points, and for you, your views on this, because it is quite a broad topic and we all come at it from a different angle. I know that professionally you're quite careful as well about your footprint and making sure that you're representing yourself in the right way. Why can't a lot of footballers seem to do this?
Well, I think it is connected to the point Claude's made about the context was different from the yesteryear football versus today. These kids that come into fame, they don't live the normal life. They're set up for success in terms of financial success from day zero, but they don't have the opportunities to actually experience any pitfalls or traps and go through the normal cycle of being an adolescent / young adult to then learn how to become more mature as they get older. Now, it's not exclusively related to age. That's one angle on it. But the other angle is, because you said everybody's got phones. The moment you say something because you might have had a bit too much to drink and you're not thinking as clear as what you would have had you not been, they're more vulnerable. People are looking for opportunities to exploit others when they're in a weakened condition or a more fragile condition. And that unfortunately leads to more opportunists to take advantage of that. So I think a lot of it does come down to players these days living in an alternate universe or alternate reality to the rest of us, mere mortals, except for Claude here. But for us, in all seriousness, I do, on one hand, feel very sorry for them because they can't make the same mistakes that perhaps some of us, regular people make. But equally, it's on them, with all the advantages and the benefits they do enjoy, to find ways to adequately protect themselves, educate themselves, and really just accept the reality that, in the words of Spider-Man movies, with great power comes great responsibility. And that's all it is at the end of the day.
Rob, do you feel any, and David has put a comment in the chat, I'm just going to chuck up. He's kind of said the players are held back from living normal lives and being normal. It takes a lot of strength and character to not implode. I think it's important that we remember as well, for every player that does the wrong thing, there are 20, 30, 40 that conduct themselves in a way that's respectable. Do you feel any sympathy for the players, Robbie, or do you think, no, you're being paid a lot, you're on a pedestal, you need to basically be perfect when you're out in public?
Yeah, no, look, I don't feel sympathy for them at all, to be honest. And for some of the points that you just bring up, it's still quite a small minority of, from all the footballers across, world football, especially top tier football, it's not a frequent thing as much as you think. If you look at the percentage of all these little things that we have, look, in this day and age, the clubs put out education for these players. So for me, it just comes down to the person themselves. It's a choice at the end of the day. You know, Kurt Zuma is old enough to make a decision. Mason Greenwood from the other week is old enough to make a decision. Money, power, and fame shouldn't make you make stupid decisions. Like I said, I believe they're human beings. And as footballers would have been, like I said, generations and generations, I'm sure everyone's gone out, like Claude said, had a bit of fun, muck around, you know, sometimes just, you know, tip the line sometimes. But it comes down to the decision of the individual. It doesn't matter on how old you are, that makes the decision to do the wrong thing. And it's the thing, I think it's stupid in this day and age, as we're talking about media and technology, how easy it is to get caught in numerous different ways. Like I said, there's always a paparazzi, there's always a phone, there's always a recording. And then it comes out quicker than the news now. That Zoomer thing circled, that was my whole feed today. The same thing with the Mason Greenwood last week. Before nearly Sky News probably had that, she put that on social media for the world to get before probably the police nearly had it under, you know, or investigation and stuff. So, and that takes, what, a couple seconds to go worldwide before, like I said, and it's the same in social media in general. You go back 10 years ago, someone like a Fabrizio Romano wouldn't have been in a job. You know, now, you know, that's the positive part of social media. People want to know things straight away. People want to know news, or I want to see photos of my team training every week to say, oh, he picked up a knock, is he okay? Or I want to know. People feed off transfers now. You know, we have the transfer windows, but then, you know, there's always, as soon as the window shuts, straight away Romano's already tweeting or he's already updating stuff for the next window. So there's positives and negatives for both. But when it comes to the players, I think it's on them, and I don't feel for them, because at the end of the day, everyone's got an opportunity to make their own decision.
That's a good point. For me, you touched on something very important. I actually wanted to transition naturally anyway to this next point. It's around social media, but more broadly, the digital age, or the information age now makes the way in which we access, interact, engage with football and everything else at a rapid pace. And with that interaction and the speed and everything's at the touch of our fingertips, Kurt Zuma does something, 5 minutes later, it's trending on every sort of platform. 5 minutes later, there's an apology from Kurt Zuma. Does that happen in the old days? Probably not. It's either not covered up, but they've handled it in a different way. And there may or may not have been the same level of outcry, because it might have been suppressed a lot easier by clubs and everybody else that has an interest in protecting Kurt Zuma and the club, etc. But with the digital age and how we have everything at our fingertips, do you think, and Claudes, I'll get your thoughts first up, has the digital age improved the experience and the way in which football fans interact with football? Or has it actually inadvertently created a perverse outcome and affected in a negative way the way we engage with football?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because, you know, I look at social media and you know, look at my career. My career is thanks to social media, right? Because once upon a time, my window of opportunity would have never come the way it did, thanks to social media. So in that regard, I'm thankful for the way that we can create a football show out of nothing, and we can grab our phone and we can have our opinion heard, and if people like you, or even if people hate you, you can grow and you can get opportunities. So in that regard, you know, I am thankful for the way it is, and I think it had to adapt with the rest of the world, right? It's not just football. Everything is moving to that. But I think everyone here can also relate to a time when you didn't see what your favorite players were having for breakfast. You didn't see what they were doing on a Sunday or at a red carpet event, or who they were dating. It didn't really matter to you. And there was something quite romantic about that time. And I remember I had this conversation actually with someone very recently about watching the World Game on a Sunday, and that was your time to catch up on football. That was your time to see these superstars. And then when Champions League mornings, and you'd see them and you'd hear the song, and you'd see Milan walk out with that team, which I still think is the best starting lineup in the history of football. And you see these players walk out, and it's just superstar after superstar, and they seemed almost like legends. So if you ever cross paths with them, which I as a kid got to see one or two players occasionally, and it was like, oh my God. And I don't know if it's because I'm getting older, but the players don't have that aura about them anymore, in my opinion, because you see them every day and you see them in their natural state. for some, that's a nice thing because you get to see behind the scenes. But for me, maybe as a football romantic, I loved when they were just these Galacticos, these warriors that we only saw for 2 hours a week when they were wearing the club's colors. And besides that, I don't want to know what you're doing. I don't care. I want to see you do that. So for me personally, as a football romantic, I think it has been a little bit detrimental in that regard. But, from a work point of view, I'm pretty thankful for it.
Yeah, and I understand this. Like you said, it just depends on which lens you're looking at it from. And Scott, like you said, we're both quite career-oriented people. We like our information age, but we're also quite old school in many respects. How much of that, what Claude said, resonated with yourself? And just any thoughts that you have about, has the information age essentially improved or adversely affected football fans' engagement with the game?
Yeah, it's a good point, and mate, I could listen to Claude speak about these kinds of things all day. Even though I'm the senior in the conversation, I feel like you're Arsene Wenger, mate, and I'm Seth Fabregas walking into Highbury. But there are positives and negatives. I mean, this social media age has opened up to many of the positives, and I do want to kind of look at those too. We can absorb so much content, and I think because we absorb so much content, our expectations and our standards get too high. Unrealistically, at some points, you always want bigger and better. When you're scrolling down Twitter and you're seeing that, Liverpool are signing amazing players during the transfer window, but then you're saying that your club don't sign any. Like, you start to compare a lot more, and I think football fans do that. You look at your team through the lens of better teams. And I think that makes us a little bit overly critical, but the social media age has helped guys like us as well, we're small time, but we can come on here every week. We can share our views with guys like Tom, who are here. We can link up with them. We've got Mo here, who runs the Blue Lounge, and Mo's channel is much bigger, but he has people calling in. We can jump on and share our views. People from across the world can come together. So I really do like that part. I feel like it's built the international footballing community. But domestically, I think it's actually been more detrimental for the players because people can catch them in the moment doing something wrong and put it out. If something happens, they're expected to get on and apologise for a red card or a bad tackle. Because back in the day, you guys like Tony Adams or, Roy Keane, they weren't getting on and they weren't apologising when they made a rash tackle. It just happened. They came back from their suspension, all was forgiven. Now I think we're a little bit more demanding. If Granit Xhaka gets a red card, and I'll put my hands up and say, I expect him to come out on social media and acknowledge that and say, you know what, I stuffed up and I let the team down. He doesn't often do it. But I expect that now. We're growing up. I didn't expect that. If Vieira got a red card, then he got a red card. So be it. No expectation. Just come back and play.
It's all about image now. It's all about image and PR. That's the big thing now. Protect the player. Half those times it's not even the player that are putting out those things. It's their PR to make them look good or something like this. So, I don't know. I think it's crazy. It's like I said, it's good and bad on both. For what you said, Scotty, I was saying it a couple of weeks ago. I love it for the whole interaction with the football community. We've made so many good friends. Claudes is one. If it wasn't for social media, we wouldn't have hooked up and had him here today. And numerous other guests we've had, Fabrizio Romano, and et cetera. Like I said, do you guys remember about a year ago or maybe 2 years ago now when I think it was Facebook and Twitter, etc., when they said we're not going to do news on these social media platforms? I think it was about a week. I died that week because I couldn't get my team sheet news an hour before kickoff. I'm like, what's going on here? So we've become reliant on social media as well. When if it was to be scrapped, then I think it'd be crazy at the same time.
Yeah, man, you all make some very good points. For me, a couple of quick thoughts are, firstly, it depends on what your motivation for engaging with the content is. And I've seen a lot of good and not so good purposes for it. It's also about how often you do use it. Some people rely on it quite frequently. Some check in every now and again, and it's not really a factor. And also, I don't know, like when I try to think about, because the positives are quite clear, what we're doing has largely been born about because of social media interaction. I was fortunate enough to meet up or have a chat with Chelsea legend Paul Canaville. All that stuff wouldn't have happened because I live here in lonely Australia and he's over in England. Never happens unless social media exists. But equally, I have to be totally honest, there are some things I do see online, and I just think maybe we're all better off at times to just step aside from it, because there is a lot of not so sensational content that people want to share with the rest of the world, because the reality is not everyone is the nicest or decides to share their news at a bad time, and that creates a bit of a toxic community. So it really just depends on all those variables. And even from a footballing perspective, what I've quite interestingly observed, I'm not sure if you gents have done the same, sometimes I feel like it's almost like there's a bit of a competition at times to try to get ahead of the game. People are trying to put themselves out there. Look at the formation I've picked. Look at the transfer buzz I picked. You know, look at the latest story I've came up with, all to try to get some, what the young kids call clout. It's trying to get as many likes, interactions, all of that to try to be noticed. And that comes back to motivation. I'm a Chelsea fan. I'm an Inter Milan fan. I like tweeting about when the team wins a game. I don't necessarily represent any one particular player, but there's even segments within, say, the Chelsea space, you get a lot of divided loyalties. You might say Jorginho, for example, doesn't get picked and Kante and Kovacic get picked. A whole lot of Jorginho fans will purposely not put out anything positive about the team and only put Jorginho props. So social media and this whole digital age promotes a lot of good and not so good behavior. But overall, I've got to say, balancing it all, I think it's more positive than negative, but it's each one's personal experience. So, you know, moving away from all of that fancy stuff, just wanted to focus in on the players, and not from a social media lens, but the actual, when I look at the handsome wages they're on, the lifestyles they're living, do you think now from a culture point of view, because it's a elite professional sport, it's not a part-time gig and they have, you know, exclusive free time, do you think, given the royalties that they've been privileged to receive, do you think at the heart of it that makes them less in touch with reality, or is it just the fact that we can only see them from the outside and form a perception of how they should be behaving? Claude's thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely think, like any young celebrity there, and we're talking about football. Football's very vast, and there's footballers all around the world. There's A-League footballers here. I don't think they deal with the same pressures that necessarily a Premier League top shelf footballer. But let's take the elite crop of players that are earning, you know, outrageous money for most of us. Yeah, I think that they are now brought up in a very you wouldn't say unrealistic, because it's reality for them, but in a way of life that isn't the norm for most people, and that can be dangerous, and it will definitely shape your personality. It's tough because, you know, it starts off as a kid that just really wants to play football, but now it's like, you know, on some of the, to go back on Rob's point, where Rob was saying, you know, it's very hard to feel sorry for them, which is fair. You know, it's very hard to feel sorry for them when they're earning millions and millions of pounds and kicking a ball, doing what we all love, but they're doing it for a living. And they got brands and they got people and they got, you know, they got attention. It's very hard to feel sorry for them. And I understand that. But it's also like, what if there is just a young kid out there that's a teenager and he's really good at what he does, and all he wants to do is be the best player in the world, right? That's what he wants to do. He doesn't necessarily want the rest, but it ends up coming. And therefore, is it a sacrifice that you have to make? If you want to be the best player, if you want to be elite, you have to accept that comes with it. And it's like, can you really hate the player if all they set out to do was play this game as best that they could, and now they have to deal with being almost a movie star, which isn't
like the Dele Alli stuff, Claude. We come back to Dele Alli, and there was a lot of this, in my view at least, and Rob, Scott, not sure if you guys seen it. He got walked out on the pitch and he's rocking some cool fashion gear, and some of the comments were, "What is this guy wearing? That's totally unprofessional." It's like, why is that important? Judge him on the field. You know what I mean? Like, do you get that this is maybe unnecessary scrutiny, or is it just people are entitled to their opinion and just suck it up?
Rob, you want to go first?
Look, technically, I think it's bullshit. Do you talking on the pitch? It doesn't matter what you wear, what you look like. I'm a United fan, so I hear this every second day about Pogba because he gets a new haircut. You know, or you would have seen it with Aubameyang, the way he dresses and all his flashy cars and etc. You know, they're young people earning a lot of money. I'm sure if we were on the money they were, I'm sure we wouldn't be driving a Corolla. We'd be out there in our Ferraris.
I've still got a Nissan, Rob. I've still got a Nissan, mate. It's
Speak for
nice.
yourself, Rob.
They're living it up. At the end of the day, it's a job. They got to the top of their job. They're getting paid well. I'm happy for them to have all these nice houses, etc. But as a fan, you want them to be doing, what we want them to be doing is their job on the pitch. If that happens, that's when both people are happy. You do your scoring, a striker scoring a goal. No one's going to care about he has a $900,000 car. But if you get someone like a Pogba, for instance, he's flashy as he loves his social media. He's a happy guy. He gets a haircut every day, but because he doesn't get an assist or a goal every 5 seconds, and he's the most expensive player we've signed, he's gonna cop it. So that's just people being salty at the end of the day, man.
Look, I think there's a bit of give and take too, though. I mean, I believe they deserve what they get. Good on them for getting their big money, because to make it as an elite footballer, you have to work really hard. It doesn't come easy. You can't just get there on natural talent. I don't believe that anyway. And they should be well paid, because, I mean, no one says that actors get paid too much. No one says that politicians, and I mean, we could spend an hour talking about them. Politicians aren't. No one sits around, well, I say they get paid too much, but they're not getting their pay cut, and a lot of them don't do anything either. So these footballers deserve to be paid big, because they have made it to an elite group. So good on them. I have no issue with them having massive money. I do think on the flip side, though, if you are going to live that life where you kind of flaunt it, if you're really going to put it out there and you're really passionate about the big social media following, and you want to be, and this is a little bit of Pogba, when things go well, like after the France World Cup, you want to be the man. Like, if you're going to be the man when things are good, you also have to understand that there is going to be some flack and there's going to be some heat when things aren't good. That's the way it is. You look at guys like Jordan Henderson, James Milner, just to name two. Even guys like Santi Cazorla, Nacho Monreal.
One Mata, another one.
Yeah, they don't flaunt it. They don't put themselves out there that much. They still use their social media, but when those guys have a stinker, they're not going to cop the same heat as someone like a Pogba would. And I think that's just the way it is. The more you put yourself out there, the more you know that you might cop that criticism too. So give and take, but mate, pay them what they want, because they work incredibly hard to get there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Look, I agree with you, Scott, to an extent, but also I think the media in today's age, it's almost like it's too easy and slightly lazy to try to pick up stories where they're not necessarily cutting edge, but you're creating something that's basically artificial and turning it into a story. So I think players like, you take Ali again, for example, he hasn't even started his Everton career and he's already getting bagged out before he's kicked the ball. Maybe if there was some substance behind it, if he had a couple of stinkers before then you could start saying, look, this guy, you could draw a narrative that he's not taking football seriously. He's all care about his off-field stuff, blah, blah, blah. But I just feel as well today, given social media influence, which again we've touched on, the media also plays probably a more important role that doesn't get highlighted enough in the way in which we engage with these players, and perhaps we try to idolize or treat these players as role models, or conversely, we overly criticize them. A lot of it is attributed to the narrative that the media helps portray. So that's just my closing thoughts on that. But you know what? We've had a really, really big discussion on it. Let's move on into more transactional things from a Premier League perspective. Scott, I believe we've got a couple of midweek games to unpack before we get into the final stages.
Yeah, we do. Just let me do my thing and get these fixtures ready. We are starting with Newcastle hosting Everton. Frankie up against the richest club in the world. Let's get some predictions on this one. We might start with you, RJ.
Super. No, just kidding. Look, I think this will be a very tough game for Everton, given Newcastle's situation. I do think they will use the momentum that they've gathered and walk away from St. James with a 2-1 win.
Claudes?
Tough one. Newcastle have had some extra time to prepare for this game, haven't they?
Good signings too.
Yeah, I like to think that we'll get a bit of a buzz at St James. I think it'll finish 1-1 draw.
Robbie?
Yeah, I agree actually with Claudes. I think this will be a draw, even though I'd like to see Newcastle lose because I want them to go down. So, but I'll stick with a 1-1 draw.
You're so petty, Robbie.
We just lost all our Newcastle subscribers, mate.
I'm just
He
being
just
honest.
wants them to go down because he said it weeks ago, and he knows I'm going to put nonsense on him if they don't. But I'm actually with you and Claudes. I'm going for 1-1 draw too. I don't think Frank has the goods to get all three at St James's Park. West Ham hosting Watford. I might kick this one off. I don't see anything other than a West Ham win, but I don't think it'll be easy. I think it'll be a pretty scrappy game. I'm going to go with West Ham 2-1 in this one. What about you, Claudes?
Roy Hodgson got the defence going, didn't he? First clean sheet in their last 5 managers, which is ridiculous.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with you. West Ham, let's see. They had a tough... Yeah, okay. I'm going to go West Ham winning it. Let's go with 2-1.
Great minds think alike. Robbie?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2-0 West Ham.
And you, RJ?
3-1, Declan Rice hat-trick.
All right. Burnley, Man United. Of course, as is tradition, you, Robbie, kick this one off.
I'm not going to say confident, but we've actually got a better record at Turf Moor against Burnley than we do at Old Trafford. Quite a good record. I'm actually going to go for a 3-1 to United on this one. We definitely need to bounce back and keep in that top 4 fight.
Mate, you're so confident considering you struggled to break down Borough. But, mate, good on you. We'll see what happens. RJ?
Yeah, it's a tough one. 6-point relegation battle here. No, just kidding, Robbie.
We should stay up.
I know you should, like Arsenal maybe, but I do think you guys will respond. You played well against Middlesbrough, like you said. They just weren't going in. I do expect them this time around. Burnley will be more resistant. I just think you'll have enough to walk away. I don't think it'll be convincing, but I do back you to win, and I lock in 2-1 to United.
I'm going 2-0 to United. What about you, Claudes?
Yeah, I'm going to go 1-0 Manchester United.
1-0 to United. All right. Let's look at the better team from Manchester, the upcoming Premier League champions. I don't think anyone can argue with that. Could be famous last words, though. Man City hosting Brentford. Now, Brentford were beaten by Frank and Everton. So on that ground, if Frank can beat them 4-1, I'm going to go with City to beat them 5-0. RJ?
Arsenal only lost 2-1 to City, but Brentford beat Arsenal 2-0. This makes a really tough one for me to pick. So
Love it.
Tough one. I still think City will get up, but it won't be as dominant as you say. Let's go 3-1 to City.
What about you, Claudes?
I'm going to go for one of those weird City games. They're probably winning, and then they go strange in the second half, and they end up winning 4-3.
Okay. Robbie?
Yeah, 4-0 City for me.
All right, let's look at the next one. Norwich hosting Palace. They had a good result in the FA Cup. Should give them some confidence. I thought they were done in that match, but let's see what you think about this one, Claudes. Norwich, Palace.
I'm a big fan of Palace. I think Palace 2-0.
Big Patrick Vieira. We're all big fans of them. Robbie?
Yeah, also going with Palace. I wish Donny was playing in this team, not Everton, but yeah, I'll go for a 2-1 to Palace.
RJ?
Tough one. All Chelsea legends. Gallagher, Gilmore on the other side. Mark Yehi, the back. Tough. Oh, I don't know. I think Palace will do just enough. This is going to be a really tough one. Lock me for 2-1 for the Eagles.
And I'm going with 2-1 to the Eagles as well. Having a look down, I'm just trying to make sure we don't get the ones that happen afterwards. We've got Spur Southampton next. Interesting one.
I might go first on this one, boys.
Yeah, please. Buy me some time.
I actually I watched the Spurs game as well in FA Cup. Obviously, Conte fan, and obviously they did buy a few players from Juventus as well. And I just wanted to see mainly how the Juve boys go, as I'm a Juve fan as well. I think that they are both going to go really well. The more time they get with Conte, the better they're going to get. The big question mark, as always, is how they're going to adapt to the Premier League. I know it's only one game. They did play a Premier League team in Brighton, When Kulusevski came on, I thought he was great. I think he will really link up with Kane and Song, etc. Once he really gets into that team and gets to know the players. As I've always said, Bentancur, really silk midfielder. He can pick a pass. Nothing flashy, but he'll do a job. I think that they're going to go really hard for that top 4. So I'm going for a 3-1 Spurs on this one. I really think they're going to charge home.
What about you, Claudes?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I'm going to go 3-0 Tottenham.
Wow. I don't see as many goals as you guys in the live chat do. I think Southampton will put up a good fight, but ultimately I think Spurs will have too much. I'm going to go 1-0 to Spurs with a late Harry Kane winner, just to be specific. RJ?
Is this the one where he pushes someone in the back? No,
probably someone in the back.
Definitely. 2-1 win to Spurs, begrudgingly, I think. Just enough.
It hurts. Last one we're going to do tonight, because these other games will fall after our Thursday evening show. Villa hosting Leeds. I think low-key this is going to be an absolute cracker of a match. I can't wait to watch this one. We might kick off with you, though, RJ, on this. Villa
it's going to be a very interesting game. I expect, hopefully, fingers crossed from a neutral point of view, quite an end-to-end game. Really liking what I'm seeing under Villa, but I think Leeds have also started to show a little bit of resolve. It's asked me this 4 weeks ago, and I'd say, yeah, Villa no problems, or just even a few weeks ago. But I think it might be a little bit closer than that. But I still expect Villa as the home side to walk away with this, and I'll lock in a 3-2, actually. I could see a high scoring affair on this one.
No, you agree with Alex. That was Alex's call too.
Wow.
Claudes, what about you?
Oof, I actually think I don't know. Something's telling me Leeds are going to get a result here. I could be completely wrong, but I think Leeds are going to win this one. I'm going to say Leeds are going to upset Villa Park. It's going to be a frustrating day for Aston Villa, and I'm going to go with 2-1 Leeds.
Wow, big shout.
Wow.
Big shout.
Our resident Leeds fan, David, is calling a 1-1 draw. Robbie, what are you calling, mate?
Me personally, I think Villa's got too much. That little bit of extra quality. They're still in the manager bounce as well, and at home, I'm going to go for a 2-0 to Villa on this one.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think 2-0 to Villa. They've got too much quality in their lineup, and I think they made some good signings. So, some interesting matches, some tight predictions. We'll have to get a score update from Daniel for Thursday night show. So, RJ, I'm going to chuck to you because I believe we've got some quick fires.
We do. And look, Claudes, for us, you know what the score is. It's just very quick answers, no beating around the bush. So from my perspective, I'll kick things off with I've only got the one quick fire, so I'll go first. Been watching a fair bit of Sopranos lately. Just love the show, love all the old mobster shows, mob movies, blah, blah, blah. Just wanted to get your thoughts, boys, and Claudes will kick us off. What is your favourite mob movie or gangster movie that you would recommend to anyone? I know there's so many good ones. Just one of your favourites.
Well, do you classify Godfather a gangster movie?
Mobster.
Yeah, it's organised crime, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
So we'll put that in the bracket.
If it
One of
counts,
my
then I've
favourites.
got to put Godfather if it's in there.
1 or 2 or 3.
Oh, there's a very strong argument for 2. There's a very strong argument for 2. It's arguably the best film, but I think 1 is a complete project on its own. So I got to put 1.
Very nice, Robbie.
No, Scotty Bonner some time.
Mate, my life is a gangster movie, so I'd probably say my autobiography, but if I couldn't say that, you couldn't really go past. There was one, I can't remember the title. No, Buy Me Time. I'm crumbling under pressure.
Look, if you allow a show, RJ, look, just fresh in my mind, I'm going to go for the Power series because I'm a massive fan, and they've obviously branched off to a few different ones. But yeah, I'm classifying that as mafia with, drugs, sex, money, power, etc.
So no movies though, Rob. I agree.
I've seen a lot of. I've seen heaps of mafia movies, man. Especially being Italian, it's a bit
Yeah. So what's one that you like that you'd recommend to someone?
I can't think on the spot. I'm being serious.
I've got nothing. Mate. Honestly,
These quick fires are turning into not quick fires because I'm on the spot.
Yeah, I've got nothing, boys. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll give you your answers then. For Rob, I will throw Casino. For Scott, I'll throw Goodfellas out there. And for
Oh, yeah,
myself,
good fellas. I'm happy with that.
great choices. And for your completeness there, Claudes, I'll go Godfather number 2, just so we've got 4 awesome movies in the pipeline.
Thank
Scott?
you,
Gents, my quick fire is not so much of a quick fire, but I'm a tragic romantic. We know that Valentine's Day is coming up, and I know there are some bachelors in this live chat. I can see Claude smiling as if to say, "Where the hell is this question?" Don't worry, Claude's mate. It's all very G-rated here. I need to buy the missus a present, boys, and I haven't really done anything yet. My missus, you both know her, Robbie and RJ, she's pretty happy, not too flashy. I need a good gift idea, boys. Nothing inappropriate, Rob. Let's keep it clean. Good Valentine's gift idea.
Look, mate, for me personally, with my missus, we don't really do the whole gift thing because we've been together for 16 years now. So try to do that every year, 16 years. But look, for me, we have a bit of a tradition. We love our seafood, mate. So we like to go to a different restaurant and a seafood platter, and that normally hits the spot, mate. Then obviously a night off with the kids is a bonus.
I like that. Claude, you'd be a romantic, mate. With a face like yours, you'd be a romantic.
He is the gift, Scott. He is the gift, mate.
I wouldn't want to see Claude's DMs.
Nah, very tame. Very tame. That's tough. What should you get her for Valentine's Day? Do you usually go extravagant for Valentine's Day, or you're quite low-key?
Not on a teacher's salary, Claude.
He's rolling in it, mate. He's Richard and Roosevelt. Don't let him trick you, mate.
I've seen all the strikes. The pays go up every time. That's a good one. You know what, Scott? I think there's if you want to be quite cute, right? There's this website where you can get a book created, and it starts off with templates, and it's like you make yourself and your partner their cartoon figures, and then you can edit all the templates, and you can make it quite custom as to the story of how you've come to be, right? And it's really cute. And mate, I've got to get it for you. I'll send it to you after this, but it's really cute.
I won't write it then.
And she'll absolutely love it. The sentimental value of that.
Claude's was much more beneficial than you, Rob. Tom is an excellent romantic, mate. Excellent romantic. What about you, RJ?
Man, I'm sweating here. I was going to say I'm losing my hair, but we're long past that, of course. So I don't know, man. I think if you ask my wife, she'll tell you every day is Valentine's Day. Yeah, right. Look, I've got no real good ideas for you, man. I'm at a total loss. I don't know. I think controversially, that day is a little bit of a hashtag Mickey Mouse ripoff day, but that's just my humble opinion. Yeah, exactly. I just think it's a little bit of a G-up.
After all these years of experience, you know what I do now? I actually book the restaurant the night before Valentine's Day, so I pay $150 less for the same plate as the next one. And what about? I used to buy my missus lilies instead of roses, bro. Number one, I actually like she actually likes lilies better than roses, and it used to be easy on the pocket, mate. So experience over the years.
Look, I'm going to give you a spoiler.
Yeah, go.
I'm not actually buying her anything, to be honest, because we don't do that. But I wanted to see how romantic you boys were. Claude, I do like your idea though, mate. So you send that over, I might look at that. And I also like your cheap idea, Robbie, of going out the night before. But I'll tell you what I am going to give her, guys, the gift that keeps on giving, an It's a Football Thing subscription. So when she's asleep, I'm going to take her phone. I'm going to log on to YouTube, and I'm going to hit subscribe on the podcast. Can I tell you, gentlemen, because even in the live chat, you've all done a hopeless job at proving that you're romantic. Get your missus' phone. Log into YouTube. Make her a Google account if she doesn't have one. And come on and click subscribe on It's a Football Thing, because we are on the road to 500. Romantic. She'll love it. The gift that keeps on giving, because we're here 2 nights a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays. But spoiler alert, I'm not buying her anything except that book.
All right, I'll quickly do mine and we'll wrap it up, boys. All right. Would you rather power or respect?
God, that's hard. I feel like if I say power, I'm going to get in trouble, but I'm going to say power. Because, I mean, if you're respected, but I think power is how that can manifest in some ways. I would say power.
I'd say respect. That's just being a traditionalist, though. I think it means more. And who knows, respect can lead to power.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with you there. I've got to go with respect. I don't think anyone goes mad with respect. And also power, some great powerful figures. It can go like that because power usually is also a target on your back to anyone who's ballsy enough to try and dethrone you. Whereas I don't think anyone would try and do that if you're highly respected.
I agree. I'll do the hat trick with respect as well. And last one, boys. Favorite big city you visited?
Ooh. You boys need some time? You good?
No, I'll go first.
Go on, you, Arch, please.
Whatever's the best one in the world. No, just kidding. That's a fence-sitting option. My favourite one that I've been to is New York City.
For me, it's a tie between Prague and Tokyo for very different reasons. I was stunned by how beautiful Prague was. My wife is half Slovakian as well, so it was nice to see that and check it out, and the people were lovely. But Tokyo is just, you have to experience it. You have to check it out. It's insane. It's so different. So both of those are a tie for me.
Wow. That's tough. I'm gonna go with Budapest because I went there with a group of friends and had my birthday there because it just happened to be that leg on our trip. We were only there for a few nights, but it happened to fall on my birthday. So we ended up it turned out to be one of the highlights of the trip, not only because it was my birthday, but it just has everything. And it was such a beautiful place and ruined bars and the nightlife was great. And it was, the people were great. So I loved it.
I'm so salty. When I went to Europe, I done 14 countries, and the 3 places I wanted to go, you guys named 2, Prague and Budapest. The other one was Split. I wanted to go in Croatia. I've never been. But I have to say, look, I know the thing. I really liked Paris. The Austrian Tyrol was great for the activities. Obviously, like I said, I got to do the whitewater rafting there. And I went to St. Julian's Bay in Malta, and that was just beautiful as well. So, yeah, I've been to a couple of good ones, but I'll put Paris at the top. I really enjoyed Paris. Plenty to do there.
Just depends on your definition of big city, because I spent 6 weeks back in the mother country and where I've come from in Sicily.
100%.
Taormina was one of my favourite places. I'm from Catania or Ciudad south of that. But Taormina, in terms of the view and everything, I just didn't know, is that a big city? But
that's why I said big city. I was just trying to eliminate
I think it's big enough.
You got a worse city? For mine, it was Barcelona. I wasn't a fan of Barcelona, and just to G up everyone, I wore Real Madrid around, especially at the stadium tour as well.
No wonder you had a crap time. Now for me, Venice. Florence. I hated Florence because I got hit by a van on my first night in Florence. Because you're used to looking right and left. Obviously, when you're over there, you have to look different ways. Didn't look properly. Matt may have, been to a bar beforehand with some of the boys. I got hit by a van on my first night in Florence on Kentucky. So certainly not Florence. Florence in the bin for me.
I'd probably say where we've come from, Fairfield/Liverpool isn't the best of areas to
go. Mate,
go
that Fairfield shaped us.
Represent.
The area.
Ooh, I'm going to go with Los Angeles. Underwhelming for me. And a similar story. Well, not quite getting hit by a car, but I was robbed in Los Angeles. So, stolen passport, stolen everything. It was headaches. And, so I'll go with LA. Hollywood particularly.
Mate, check this from me, mate. You're a scumbag, mate. It took out my shoulder, but I took his side mirror. So he got a shoulder, I got a mirror. We call that an even transfer. Are you mad? But, mate, you're banned from now. I'm clicking the ban button for you. Boys, it's been a fun show. But I think, RJ, we're going to leave this to you to wrap up, my man.
Yeah, no, look, just very quickly, again, thank you very much to returning special guest Claudes, a.k.a. Mr. Co-host from the Born Offside Podcast, which we have links in the description. Claudes, you're doing some great things outside of that as well. Any final reflections before we say thank you and good evening?
Oh, just thanks for having me again, guys. And it's always a breath of fresh air, really, to speak to 3 guys that really live and breathe the game, that understand the game on so many different levels. And so it's something that can go on all night. I know you guys are always like, we'll try to keep it to an hour. If you need to leave, you can leave. But we could chat this all night. I know you guys are the same. So it's always a pleasure to be on here, and honestly, anytime.
Thank you. Robbie, any final thoughts, mate?
Nah, look, mirroring exactly you guys. We love having people like Claudes. You're one of my favorites. I'm a fan. I listen to you weekly. You know, I always like to see you on the socials and stuff. So yeah, look, it's an honor to have you on the show as always. And hopefully again we'll meet up again and cross paths again one day.
Thanks, Rob.
Beautiful. Scotty?
David is calling for the Born Offside hat trick. We'll see how we go. We'll see how we go. We know Olin's busy too, and we know Kat and Claudes are. So for me personally, it's always great, Claudes, to have you join us. We know how busy you are, mate. You're doing great things with not only the Born Offside podcast, but I Want It Yesterday as well. I'm not sure. Did we chuck their link in the bio, RJ?
Not sure at this stage. I know we've put Claude's details, which obviously act as a direct route to the I Want It Yesterday.
Check that out too, because Claudes is someone who lives and breathes football and is doing great things for the community and for fellow content creators too. It's a pleasure to have you doing that, Claudes, because you're always looking out for other creators too. So big ups to you and wishing you success.
I was going to say he's come up with more bangers than Chelsea's goals in the January with Ziyech and Kovacic, so he's just on fire at the moment, aren't we, Claudes? But look, final thoughts. Thank you again very much. Thank you to the live chat. If you haven't had a chance, guys, tomorrow when you come back and watch the video again, because they always do, they always love the videos here, slap a like, slap a comment, and we hope to see you again on Thursday evening. Until then, enjoy your evening and stay safe.
Take care.